All right. Today we're going to talk about a couple things. The main thing among them is going to be the open enrollment, initiating it, maintaining it, and then closing it. It's not a lot of work within the open enrollment, but the preparation for it can be a lot of work. And before we get into open enrollment, there is something called in benefits, which we didn't cover yet, is basically adding dependents. And people could add dependents throughout the year, obviously not just at open enrollment. And when someone has a dependent, they could at that time enroll themselves in the benefits. So typically companies already have an event for if someone has a child or they get married, the employee could go into the system under their benefits tab and they could add that child to their profile. So point being, throughout the year, benefit change could be initiated based on different events. And then one time during the year, everybody has a chance to make changes to their benefits, and that period is called open enrollment. So just like in compensation, anybody could have a salary change at any time during the year through the job change process. But then when one time a year where most of the company or certain departments, they all have a review together and a salary change together, that's called a focal process or merit process. On the benefit side, it's called open enrollment when everybody is able to do it together. We want to make sure that there's no open benefit events before we trigger open enrollment. And also, just before we start, I want to make sure that I show to you guys how to add dependents. So I'm going to pretend Logan is a normal employee, not an HR administrator. So as an employee, she will go to her profile. She could also, I think, on the home page, there is a benefits worklet that we saw last time. From here, you could click on dependents. So from here, we click on add a dependent. Seems like she already has a couple of dependents as well. But if we were to add a new one, the employee or the benefits partner could do that through here. And this effective date would, in case it's the new child, it would be the date of birth. Use that as the effective date. Can your person be a beneficiary? If you mark it as yes, then this person will show up on the open enrollment side as a as one of the people in the list who could be selected as a beneficiary. The legal name, gender, date of birth, and so on. Is this a full-time student? This used to be a standard question. Unfortunately, it's still in Workday, but with Obamacare, it's no longer relevant. Anybody under 26, they're eligible for benefits. So a lot of companies will ask, like, can we get rid of this? No, we can't. We don't control, the things that are on this page. This is Workday delivered. So unfortunately, the question has to stay until Workday changes it. And relationship could be child, spouse, etc. Is this a person with a disability? This is important because if they have marked as no and the child turns 26, then based on the rules that we saw, the person would be removed from the benefits through a passive event. Like no one will have to do something if that person just falls off the benefits. There might be a notification to the employee if a notification has been set up. Otherwise, they won't even know about it until they get a change in participation from their benefit carrier. and then the standard tobacco question. Okay, and then if I had populated it, then I would just submit it. And this is how you would add a dependent. So what happens is that throughout the year, employees would add dependents through this page, and when they go to open enrollment screen to add a benefits, they would also at that time click add dependents, and then they will end up with duplicate dependent who's the same person, but one profile of the dependent would be the one that's enrolled in benefits and another one would not be. So after the break, when I show you guys the integration, you have to exclude the dependents who are duplicates, because that does happen quite a lot. Okay, so if the dependent does not have any benefits, then you could delete them. If they do have dependents, then you cannot delete them. You could deactivate them or inactivate them after you remove the benefits from their profile. This is usually a task for the benefits administrator, but just like most of the stuff in the benefits module is very stable, you really won't see any bugs in it. The issue is just training. So you may have a new benefits administrator. They'll ask you, oh, this person has been entered by error. What do we do? So you just come to the screen. If there's no benefits elected, then you could delete them. Otherwise, you could remove their benefit election and then deactivate them. So that's a common issue that I've seen, the issue of duplicate dependents. Okay. All right, so basically to add dependents, you go to the benefit workplate. From there, you add the dependent, then you could add them to various plans. You could also delete and inactivate in our tenant. You could go to these two employees and pull them up and then try to deactivate their dependents or one of them. If the dependent has never enrolled in coverage or has been identified as a beneficiary for a plan, they could be deleted from the system. Otherwise, they must be inactivated, but remove all their elections first. Okay, so now let's switch gears. Let's talk about preparation for open enrollment. Open enrollment is typically abbreviated as OE, so which stands for open enrollment. Before open enrollment, you may have a new provider. You may have change in provider, so this would be the benefit vendor. So you have to add that provider profile into Workday. You will need the provider's ID. You will need the provider's URL. And just like we showed in the previous sessions, you'll need to add them into Workday. But because the person it's a new provider, they will likely also need an integration. And unless they have gone through it before, they're not going to tell you that they need integration. They're just going to assume somehow the data is going to flow from Workday to that new provider. So you need to be aware that just because you add a new provider, it's not going to automatically flow there. You'll need to build some type of integration, whether it's going to be EIB or it's going to be Cloud Connect. But make sure you have set aside enough time to understand that provider's specifications. Then you'll need to in order to provide the sample data, you will need to make sure that the benefit plan is set up, you have done some enrollments, and then only then you'll be able to provide that sample data as part of the integration to the new provider. So even though creating that provider or creating a plan, that's just a half-hour task, but then you do need to do the enrollments into that plan and the testing. So you'll need at least like 2 or 3 weeks to successfully build the integration and to send the data over. Okay, so the other things we need to watch out for is if there's update to benefit plans for the planned year. More than likely, if the company is not on a HSA, they will probably add HSA as a new plan. If they're already on a FSA or HSA, then every year those amounts change. So make sure you know where to go to update the annual amounts for the FSA and the HSA. Then also in preparation for that is you need to update the benefit plan definition. And one thing that's not part of benefits module, but there's a dependency on the benefits module is the pay period schedules. So because the FSA and the HSA, they do depend on the number of periods that are remaining in the year, because with these plans, there's an employee signs up to have money taken out of their paycheck, and the money is taken out per pay period. So you need to make sure that the pay period schedules are set up for the whole year. And this will be usually someone who does the Workday payroll, or someone who's, it's not a complex task. You just create pay period, and then you just create it for each, you create two pay periods for each month. But since it's not part of benefits, it usually gets forgotten. So if the company is on FSA or HSA plan, make sure that the pay periods are set up for the whole year, not just for like the first month or so. So just a screenshot of the list again. Update the benefit group, benefit plan, any dependent eligibility rule changes, any passive event changes, and then you could run the eligibility rules audit. You run that report, make sure there's no one on it that needs to be fixed. And then you run the view eligibility rules results and run the benefit group audit. Remember, when you run the benefit group audit, the expectation is that no one should be on that report. If someone's on that report of the benefit group audit, that means we need to fix our group eligibility. I don't know if you guys subscribe to any of the Workday groups on LinkedIn or Facebook, but yesterday or the day before, someone posted a question. They said they created a new benefit plan, but they don't know how to roll it out to the existing employees. Now we created plans and then we put eligibility on it, but you guys did not see me roll out the benefit plans. When we did the comp plans, we did do a rollout, but when we created benefit plans, we did not do a rollout. So the answer to his question is, when you create a brand new benefit plan, you do not need to roll it out. You just need to make sure that the correct eligibility is set on the plan. And then remember, I showed you guys on one of the sessions on once you create the eligibility rule, from the rule itself, you could see who the population or the the people who are eligible based under that rule. So let's look at this instruction text with respect to initiating open enrollment. So select all benefit groups that should be included. Typically, if you're launching it for US, it's either going to be just one benefit group or two. It might be a group that says all US employees, or it could be all US salaried employees plus all US hourly employees. So it could be just one group, it could be two groups. And then there's one checkbox that says exclude employees with waiting periods. This is if you want to exclude any new hires. If they are, for example, they don't get benefits for the first 30 days. So you want to exclude those whose benefit coverage does not take effect until after the planned year. And once you initiate that, and then you complete the enrollments, typically the employee does it via self-service. They could do it on their mobile phone, and they could make changes until open enrollment is closed.
How do you generally test this? How do you guys test this when you launched benefits? Is there a preview run
Yes.
for this? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in real life, before you launch it, you should run the benefit event status report to see if there's any employees who have any benefit open events. And then you'll work with them to close anything that's open. So any data that shows up in here, you'll work with the benefit partner to make sure you complete all of that. Then to initiate open enrollment is actually just really simple. It's to initiate open enrollment is the task name. And you enter the dates. I'll do that in a second. We'll do it in the instance. And then there is the status report. But basically the workflow is once you initiate it, for the right group, in this example, it's active employees in US, a change benefit task is created, and then elections are submitted by the employee or the HR partner, and then a change open enrollment task is created. If the elections are not submitted, and from within the system, you could send out reminders based on the status. The benefits administrator usually sends out a reminder. Instead of doing it from within Workdays, they sometimes feel safer that they just send an email to all employees reminding them that open enrollment is open and they have so many more days to do the enrollment. And then when everybody has done the enrollment or when the deadline approaches, then you close open enrollment, and when you close it, all the change benefit tasks are removed, and then you finalize open enrollment. I have a note over here that run open enrollment only once in production for that year. Okay. That means you must thoroughly test it in sandbox or preview, so you don't have to cancel and restart in production. I'll just go through these notes first before we actually go into the system. Now, let's assume open enrollment is going to be is typically open enrollment start date is going to be November 1st, whatever year it is, and end date is going to be, it's usually 2 weeks. So And then the effective date of the new events, effective date of the open enrollment is going to be, it's actually called the event date. It's going to be January 1st of the new year. So this is open enrollment, right? Now, what happens if on November 8th, okay, so you initiate it, and so you initiate this. You initiate this on October 30th, and you say start date November 1st and end date November 15th for the open enrollment period. And then you put January 1st as the event date. But then on November, let's say, for example, you have a new hire. There is no waiting period, and there's a new hire starting November 20th. Okay. And because he's starting on November 20th, and we give him benefits right away, that means he's going to need benefit coverage starting November 20th. Okay. But he also needs to be part of the open enrollment so that he could also sign up for benefits that will be effective next year.
So he is eligible for plan year, current plan year, as well as next plan year.
Correct. So this is something that, like, if someone is new to benefits, they won't know this, so they will ask you, like, what's going to happen in this scenario, right? We're only opening enrollment to anybody who was already here. So this person is starting after it closes. He could also even start on November 10th. So in Workday, there's something called coordination of benefits. This functionality, you don't have to do anything. It already exists, but you need to be aware of it in case you need to explain it to somebody. That in this case, even though on November 15th, you already closed it and you finalized it, but because you have this new hire starting on November 20th, he's going to go through new hire benefit change. And then once he does that, Workday will automatically open an enrollment task for him. Okay. So even though you have already closed it once, but since there was a hire, Workday will automatically open an enrollment task for this person. You have to keep monitoring the reports to make sure that no one has, like, this task has not opened for anybody. If it's open for somebody, you have to make sure that they do the enrollment, and then you close it. So you have to keep monitoring the status reports. And if you find someone for whom open enrollment is open, assist the employee in signing up for benefits, and then close open enrollment. Okay. So you keep monitoring the reports. If you find someone if you see someone that the open enrollment is open, then work with the benefit partner, make sure the employee signs up for benefits, and then close it open enrollment. So you will open it once, but you will close it many times. And the reason is someone could have a child on December 25th, but they may not go into Workday, they may be on leave. They may not go into Workday until January 10th. So when they go into Workday on January 10th, that's when they're going to add their dependent for effective date of December 25th, because the child was born on December 25th. So they need coverage for the current year. And then after they do the enrollment for their current year, then a new open enrollment task will open up on January 5th or January 10th. It may even be January 20th. So then you have to close it. So just because it's already January, don't think there's, and you have already closed it, like everything is fine. Because you never know if someone had a child on December 30th and then they go into Workday on January 20th, and they will get the open enrollment task at that time.
So
And
that
in order to make sure those people are part of your data file to the vendor, you have to close open enrollment again and then finalize it. And you have to keep doing this check until at least January 30th, January 31st. So basically, you should put it on your calendar that on every Friday, you're going to check the status report, see if there's any new open enrollment, and then close it every week. Otherwise, those people who signed up for benefits during December or January, and if you don't finalize it, they will not be sent. So in the United States, if someone has a child, they have 30 days to do the enrollment. So in the most extreme case, they might have a child on December 31st, and then they have until January 30th to do the enrollment. So that's why we have to monitor it until January 31st, just in case you have someone who waited till the last day to do the enrollment. So if they're born in January 1st or after, then they won't have the open enrollment event. They'll just be covered under the normal new dependent event. Okay, so basically that's what I talk about over here, that employee can possibly become eligible after enrollment has started and even possibly after it has closed. The system will automatically create an open enrollment for them. And this applies to things like new hire, marriage, or child. So these events will be processed first, and then open enrollment event will be created for them. And if you don't want to wait for the system to create the open enrollment, because it might take some time, you can create the event sooner by running the eligible workers with no open enrollment report. So this report called eligible workers with no open enrollment, it will show you workers who are eligible, but they don't have an open enrollment task. And that's because they might be having one of these events. So in that case, after you view the list, you can click on add workers and then you basically enter the name of the employee. And that will, once you click on add worker and enter the name of the employee, then an open enrollment task will be created for that employee. So this is an example of people having an event that adds to their benefit. There could also be the opposite, which is called termination. So if a termination happens, then worker will automatically no longer be eligible for open enrollment. And if they had not signed up for any benefits, the open enrollment task will be just canceled for them. If they had signed up for open enrollment and then they terminated, then their task will automatically be rescinded. So you just need to monitor, the report that shows if there's anybody who's terminated and if they're still on benefits. But as part of coordination of events, you don't have to do anything. The Workday will automatically remove the benefits of those people who lost eligibility due to any kind of event or termination. So let's go into our GMS tenant and initiate an open enrollment event. Okay, so initiating open enrollment is actually pretty simple. You just initiate open enrollment. You just select the benefit group. So there's a note here. Before initiating open enrollment, you should run the benefit group audit report to make sure your employees are not eligible for more than one benefit group. We talked about that. We also talked about this. If you're using spending account or health savings account, make sure payroll periods are set up completely for the benefit plan year and for all relevant pay groups in the open enrollment. So glad I covered it. Okay. So we're going to select the salaried US benefit group and hourly US benefit group. Event type is open enrollment. So when you're doing open enrollment, you have to indicate the time frame when it's going to be open from. So notice it doesn't have the start date. It only has the open until date. So we're going to say it's going to be open until March 16th. This actually, in real life, it only happens usually in November and December. But we cannot go back now and say, hey, open it for November. And the event date is usually beginning of the following year, but I will go ahead and just select April 1st. Okay, initiated, open until, and then the effective date. Okay. So I'm getting an error that says open enrollment has already been initiated for one or more benefit groups selected and the time frame. So I have to cancel the previous one first. So there's the open enrollment status. Okay, since I used January 1st through March 4th, I could try to set up a different time frame. Maybe I'll select March 15th. Okay, then we get so the issue in the previous one was that even though I canceled it, but my open enrollment start date cannot be this. We cannot have multiple ones with the same effective date. So previously I selected 4/1, I have to select it 5/1. And that's why that warning is that in production, you could only launch it once, because how are you going to manage having the effective date as January 1st? If you mess up, if you put January 1st first time, and then you have to redo it, you cannot select January 1st again. So once it's launched, we get the details here. And right now, all the status, the employee counts are 0, because it still is processing. So if I click on refresh, so we see this number. This is the number of employees who are captured as part of the open enrollment. And right now they're showing up under not started. Three people are on hold. They must have some benefit event already in progress. So the benefit administrator has to look at those people and either cancel their existing benefit change or complete it. Okay, so it seems to be completed. No, it still says processing. Okay, so now it has completed, and then we see that 163 employees have been enrolled as part of the open enrollment. Their status is not started. So these employees, they have received an item in their inbox to go ahead and do their open enrollment. And then the people on hold, they have some kind of conflicting enrollment already that needs to be canceled. So I was trying to pull up Logan McNeil because I cannot proxy in as other people. But I see that she has some kind of change already. And so that's why she's not in the not started on hold list. But as far as kicking off the event, that's all there's to it. If you in your training tenant, you could proxy as the employee and actually complete the enrollment, but I can't do that. So I'm going to let's take our 10-minute break right now, and I'll try to find an employee for which this launched, and then we could go in as that person, or I'll try to clear up Logan's profile so I could go through open enrollment as her. All right, so we initiated open enrollment. I couldn't go in as Logan because I had initiated a child event. But in the GMS tenant, I was able to log in as Teresa Serena, and she is part of the group that was eligible for open enrollment. So she got an item in her inbox that says change benefits for open enrollment, and it shows the time frame, and then the let's get started button. So tobacco use question, if it is used, like a lot of companies don't use this, so it would not be configured, but if it is used, then they see this first. And then we see the medical dental plans, and these are called cards. So this is the medical card, the dental cards, and so on. So this is the open enrollment new UI. It was only introduced for the first time end of last year. So it's a much better view. And so it shows their current enrollment and the coverage target and the cost per paycheck. And if they want to change it, they could click here on manage and change their coverage. So I'm not gonna put her on high deductible health plan, because remember we talked about that there's a cross plan dependency, that only if you have signed up for high deductible plan, then you could sign up for HSA. So I'm not going to sign her up for high deductible. I'm just going to sign her up for the HMO plan. And then we'll try to enroll her in the HSA plan, and we should not be able to do that. This will be a good test of the cross-plan dependency. So I'm going to click confirm and continue. And she already has a spouse listed here if she wants to add her spouse. And she could also add a new dependent directly from this screen. And remember, we saw the instructions where we could update this text. And unfortunately, this area right here, the top area, we cannot modify that. A lot of companies, they want to modify this top area, but we cannot modify that, but we can only change the instructions down here. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. And then so on, we could do the dental coverage. Now I'm going to try to enroll in the HSA. Yes, they do. They do provide, like, I think $1,500 for individual, and no, $750 for individual and $1,500 for the family. But this amount changes every year, and it's usually processed through a third-party benefits provider. Signing up for it, like if someone wants to sign up for it, that's configured here. Like this is the, in this tenant, the HSA plan needed to exist, and the plan name was Optum Health Bank. But we see that we cannot select it. And there is no error message either. Okay, it says here, you could select either of the following plans, but not both. It says when you select medical high deductible, you can also select the health savings. Okay. So we cannot, since we did not select high deductible, we cannot sign up for this one. So I'm going to cancel. I'm going to go back and sign up for the high deductible plan so that I can sign up for the HSA. Now I could sign up for the health savings plan. Okay. So here, the employee will indicate how much contribution they would like to see deducted from their paycheck. So for example, it might be $100. And Workday will calculate that out to $800 per year, and then give you a summary like total contribution is going to be $800. The maximum allowed is $7,000. And then obviously you could, if you had a dependent, like I showed in the beginning, how to add a dependent if they were marked as a beneficiary, you could select them. You could select an existing person, or right from here, you could also create a new beneficiary. Now, there's one challenge with the HSA plans where there is no solution to it. So you see how no matter how you configure it, by default, you have to tell the contribution per paycheck. And then there is a maximum amount of 7,000. But by law, you're allowed to front load all your contribution. That means in January or February, you could say, hey, I want my maximum contribution, like 7,000. I want that money taken out of my first 3 paychecks, and then I want 0 amount taken out for the remainder of the year. So you might say, I have a lot of money already. I want $4,000 taken out of my paycheck only in January and February. And then after that, I will come back here and make it a 0 amount. But there's no place in Workday to indicate that this is only for January and February. So we cannot accommodate that requirement. Because if you put 4,000, it will think that this is 4,000 for all of the remaining paychecks. And then it will say it will multiply that by the remaining pay period, and you're getting an error because it's saying it thinks that you're trying to deduct 32,000. But what the employee is trying to do is they're trying to have 4,000 deducted per paycheck just in January and February. And then after that, they want to make this a 0. So they're trying to front load it. So that does happen from time to time. Employees will ask for that. Unfortunately, Workday cannot accommodate that. There is no way. I already checked different solutions. In checking with other people also, the only solution that we could come up with is we make this contribution like really large. And instead of having a maximum annual contribution of 71,000, we have to give it a number like 100,000. So in that case, the employee could put like up to 7,000 for that pay period, and then they will still be under the maximum amount of like 100,000. And when you see that as the benefit administrator or as the Workday administrator, then you have to tell your benefits partner saying that, hey, this person is deducting a really large amount. Maybe they intend to do this just for the first month. And then you have to put a reminder and you check with them that, hey, starting next month, they want to make this a 0 amount. So there's some complexity to the HSA. But let's just go over the normal use case. Say they want to deduct $100 out of their paycheck. Okay, so we sign them up for medical, dental, HSA. We could have also signed up for FSA or group life insurance. I'm going to go to the signature page. Okay, so this is the summary page. It has the cost. You don't need to configure this screen. This screen is already there when you go to the end of open enrollment. We cannot obviously modify the columns. So it basically has the coverage information, any plans that were waived, the total company cost, employee cost, if there are any credits. And then the very last step is the electronic signature. So when we were setting up benefits, the first thing we did was create the electronic signature, and it shows up as the last item. And basically it just says that you click accept and then you submit. Now, where does this information show up on the employee profile? So let me, obviously you could see it at that time on that statement, but afterwards you could go to the employee profile. If you go to the benefits link, this information will not be future, right? This will be the current enrollment. So under the benefits icon, this is the current enrollment. If you want to see the future ones, you go to actions, benefits, and then view benefit election history. Okay. So we see that this is the current row, and the one we just did right now is the effective April 1st, is this one. And then if we click here, we could see that what she submitted. So she elected the high deductible plan. and so on. So that's where we see the data for that. All right, let me see if there's anything I forgot to cover. Okay, so remember I said keep monitoring the status reports. So this is where you monitor it from. There is the open enrollment status report, but I don't think she has access to it. So let me go back in as Teresa. I mean, not as Teresa, as Logan. It's called open enrollment status. And then there's also the benefits open enrollment status summary. Okay. But basically, as employees submit it, this number will grow. And eventually we should see 0 here. And the rest of these columns should be populated. And if we click on view details, slightly different view. So we only submitted it for one person. But at some point, since this is a time limited, like employees have to do this before March 31st. So on April 1st, as the Workday support person or HRIS, you're going to close the process. You want to make sure you send out like one final reminder or coordinate it with the HR partner. And you want to make sure that no one's on hold, everybody has submitted, no one's in progress. And then you could close it. Obviously you could send a reminder emails from here, but that needs to be, make sure your notifications are configured, and if they're not, then you don't want to use that functionality. Rather just send an email directly from your email system. No, it would, whether the emails, I don't know if they go to everybody or only the ones who have not started. My experience, we never use that functionality. The HR partner just sends it out from their Outlook. And actually, I didn't see anything about that in the guide either. So there must be something about that on the community, but I have not looked that up. And then when it's ready to close it, you will go ahead and click Close Open Enrollment. And you want to put this date, close employees with enrollments open until, like you want to put this date like way in the future, just in case there were some enrollments that happened after, the first close. So I'm just going to put 31. So and then it tells us these are the number of enrollments the system will be closing. So right now it's processing. So let's give it a couple seconds. Correct. For all the plans, they will require that it will just default to whatever you had before, with the exception of FSA. On the FSA plan, you actually set it that it will automatically get waived at open enrollment unless you actually sign up for it.
Manually sign up for it. Okay.
Yeah. So closing is completed, but that is not the last step. The last step is you have to finalize. Okay, so it has finalized. To finalize was down here, and before I finalized it, there was a choice down here, like previously it was closed, and then once it was closed, then the finalize was here. So now we see that it finalized with that one change that we saw for Teresa, and I could go to her profile. Now, even though it's finalized, the benefits administrator, they could still make corrections and they could still make changes. It's just that employee cannot do that anymore. So go to benefits and then benefit selection history. So we see that this is the one that she did, and it's in the status of finalized right now. Okay, so that's pretty much the last step of the, as far as the configuration in the system or running the process. But now what happens after open enrollment is completed, and now you need to send the data to the vendor. So next I'm going to share a report that basically gives the output, and I made the report in the same format as they require in their CSV file, and then I just made it into an outbound EIB. We're not going to get into the outbound EIB because that's just a very generic, create outbound, but at least let me show you guys the name of the report and the business object that's being used. So custom report is running off the data source all workers, and this is for United Healthcare. It's a new provider, and basically they needed all the common fields, Social Security, ID, only reason the annual base salary needed to be a calculated field is because of the formatting. Basically the home address, coverage begin date, coverage end date. You could pick them up from all of the coverage information will come from the benefit elections business object. So which benefit plan, what coverage target, and basically the group headings. And then the filter is basically based on active status, not terminated. Make sure that there is benefit election is not empty. And then for the sub filter, you basically indicate the name of the plans that it should be pulling the data from. So in this case, this was all of the United Healthcare plans. So you indicate that as part of the business object criteria. And you want to exclude any terminations. And basically, that is it. At the prompt, you want to make sure that the effective date is going to be like when it's, it's going to be the same report that runs throughout the year, like every 2 weeks. And then at the open enrollment time frame, you're going to run the same report, but instead of, for that default effective date, it's not going to be the current date. When you're running it for the open enrollment, you're going to run it in December because the vendors, they want the data like beginning of December. At that time, when you run it, you're going to put effective date of, December, not December, January 1st of that year. So next year, or in December when I run it, the effective date should be January 1st, 2021. So I will get the data as of January, I will get the open enrollment data. And then when it runs throughout the year, then the effective date is just, it's just based on the run date. And obviously what we're seeing right now is just the report, but this needs to be packaged as part of the EIB, outbound EIB with the, with the SFTP setup so that the file gets securely deposited on the vendor's, secure FTP site. So this one was for United Healthcare. An exact copy of this is what I'm using for Guardian Dental. The only thing I'm changing is instead of the medical plans, obviously selecting the Guardian plans. But as far as the actual data, fortunately, both Guardian and Dental is the exact same file. I think there's only like one column that's different, but otherwise it's basically the exact same report. So I just wanted to share with you that instead of spending a lot of time and money building a integration, you could just create a custom report with those fields. Maybe you'll need to create some calculated. Maybe you'll need to create some calculated fields, but you could just create an outbound EIB and save the company a lot of money by just sending the data via that custom report, and then schedule it to run on every week or every 2 weeks, whatever the company requirements. Okay, so that's the end of open enrollment, sending the data